we are sending a brigade-sized force to Panama to augment our military forces already assigned there. If required, I do not rule out further steps in the future.
One of several moves today by President George Bush, precautionary to protect U.S. citizens and interests and to try to pressure Manuel Noriega again to get out. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. President George Bush tonight faces his first full-blown foreign policy dilemma, practically in the U.S.'s own backyard. Sending in more U.S. soldiers is only the most visible of the moves Mr. Bush ordered today, what one of his aides called a prudent and strictly precautionary step. The president also called on Noriega's own soldiers to desert his cause, and he accused Noriega of stealing Sunday's election. Our coverage of the Panama story starts with Wyatt Andrews at the White House.
President Bush ordered some 2,000 fresh combat troops into Panama immediately and ordered the evacuation or relocation of all U.S. government employees and dependents who live outside U.S. bases there. Mr. Bush said the combat troops would only augment U.S. forces in Panama, but made it clear he intends this as a show of force.
I'm worried about the lives of American citizens, and I will do what is necessary to protect the lives of American citizens. And we will not be intimidated by the bullying tactics, brutal though they may be, of the dictator Noriega.
It was yesterday's wild violence that confirmed White House fears that Panama had become unpredictable, that hostage-taking or attacks against Americans were possible. Beyond the new troops and the evacuations, the president also ordered the recall of the U.S. ambassador to Panama and the continuation of U.S. economic sanctions. He called on private U.S. businesses to give American employees extended leave from Panama, and he asked other Latin American countries, through an emergency meeting tomorrow of the Organization of American States, to step up the pressure on Noriega. The president said he is willing to negotiate the terms of Noriega's departure, but not to deal away the drug indictment against him.
Dropping these indictments, I'm not going to do that. That has profound implications for our fight against narcotics.
True to form, the president alerted congressional leaders in advance that he was about to send troops to Panama. It helped him win enthusiastic backing.
We believe the president's steps to be sound and reasonable, and he has our full support.
And we would hope the Panamanian people and international concern and outrage would have an impact on General Noriega, an impact for the better, which means he would leave.
In fact, if there were any questions about the Bush plan, it was whether the president had done enough.
I'm continuing to urge the president to take military action for the simple reason that we've long passed the point where words can have an effect on General Noriega.
Mr. Noriega is a man who we have continuously underestimated. And I think that's one of the failures in our policy, is underestimating this guy's ability to stay.
The critical test now is whether the Latin American democracies will buy into this notion that 2,000 fresh troops in Panama represent something other than gunboat diplomacy. Dan, it is precisely because Mr. Bush has said he needs the Latin American pressure on Noriega that he can't afford to have this new policy bogged down in a debate on whether the U.S. has become the bully.
Wyatt, the president has consistently been urged to recognize the opposition leader, Mr. Andara, as the new president of Panama. Why hasn't he done that?
Well, Dan, in a way they have. He has not recognized him as the president, but official U.S. policy is that he is the president-elect. Part of the reason for that is that constitutionally in Panama, the changeover happens in September, so they don't have to deal with questions right now about whether to send ambassadors to the new government.
Wyatt Andrews, thanks. At U.S. Army and Marine bases in several states, the quick step is on tonight to pack up and move out. Other units have been told they may be next. David Martin is standing by at the Pentagon with the details. David?
Dan, the Pentagon is calling this Operation Nimrod Dancer, and it involves about 2,000 combat troops being sent in as reinforcements to Panama. The troops will come from 3 bases in the United States. One Army battalion from Fort Ord, California, will be airlifted into Panama, starting within the next 24 hours. Another battalion's worth of soldiers from Fort Polk, Louisiana, will move in by sea, bringing armored vehicles with them. And a company of Marines will be airlifted from Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. The troops will be deployed to American bases on both the Pacific and Atlantic coasts of Panama, where some 10,000 American servicemen and their families already are stationed. No one knows how long they will stay.
Their role basically will be to reinforce those that are already in the area, give our local commander more assets should that become necessary.
We are sending the units that we consider to be appropriate to the task laid out for them, and that is to protect American lives and property and to protect the canal.
At the same time, a battle group led by the aircraft carrier America has left Norfolk, Virginia, and although it is officially said to be headed for the Mediterranean, the Pentagon made no secret it is another shoe waiting to drop.
I can't speak to future military operations. The President mentioned that there could be other follow-on options, and indeed there could be.
Pentagon officials also say that a Marine amphibious force based at Camp Pendleton, California, has been placed on alert in case more troops are needed. Dan, while the reinforcements are moving in, some 3,000 military and civilian family members who live outside U.S. bases in Panama will be evacuated from their homes and moved onto the safety of American bases and perhaps even back to the United States.
David, everyone is underscoring that these are strictly defensive moves.
Well, for the moment, that's true, but with the carrier battle group headed by the America and a Marine amphibious task force waiting in the wings, there is clearly the threat here that if the evacuation of Americans runs into trouble, there's going to be something more than reinforcements the next time.
David Martin, thank you. So far, at least, President Bush's moves have had no apparent effect in Panama. Panama City is calm tonight. Noriega spokesmen seem to have gone out of their way not to have reacted in any official way. Noriega's opponents have reason to be thankful. Our man in Panama, Juan Vasquez, tells us why.
Noriega's opponents got some good news for a change when vice presidential candidate Billy Ford showed up safe today. Some had feared for his life. He had last been seen at a demonstration that came under a savage attack from General Noriega's so-called dignity battalions. Ford was arrested and accused of instigating violence.
Starting disturbances in Panama and attacking the defense forces.
They accused you of inciting them?
Yes, sir. And they gave me 1 year.
Presidential candidate Guillermo Endara was hit across the head with a metal pipe. He was hospitalized for treatment.
He has some dizzy spells, and they took a brain scanning. Everything came out all right, but he's resting today.
The dignity battalions were organized last year to counter threats of an American invasion. U.S. officials believe many are soldiers in civilian dress.
Well, they all have the same boss. They all come under Noriega.
De la República.
The announcement that the elections were null and void caught many by surprise. There's no indication of when a new election will be held. The opposition calls it an admission by Noriega that his candidates lost by such a huge margin that the election was beyond fixing. But it also undercuts their legal claim to the leadership of the nation and allows Noriega to buy some badly needed time.
I think Mr. Endara is still the president-elect. I do not respect the cancellation of the elections.
Meanwhile, the dependents of U.S. Embassy personnel were moved onto American military bases in Panama for safety. And tonight, the U.S. Southern Command ordered the dependents of some 700 families of U.S. military personnel who live on Panamanian soil to move onto the bases as well. Juan Vasquez, CBS News, Panama City.
If any one incident prompted today's moves from President Bush, it was that attack yesterday by Noriega henchmen on the opposition candidates. The opposition had hoped to rally world opinion against Noriega, but it was the actions of Noriega's own troops and supporters that ignited international condemnation of the Panamanian strongman. These are the pictures that sounded the alarm. The brutal attack came as the opposition candidates were leading a demonstration through the streets when they were confronted by this group of thugs. Their T-shirts read Dignity Battalion. They are, in effect, Noriega's militia. They break through, threatening violence. Shouting, "You're going to die here," they start swinging. Watch closely. At least a dozen of Panama's riot police are standing by, making no effort to interfere with the attacking mob. Opposition Vice Presidential candidate Ricardo Arias Calderon describes what happened next.
I saw one of them come towards me at very close range and swing his metal rod with all his strength. I started running next to President-elect Endara, and we both took a small side street, and suddenly I tumbled and people started to fall on top of me, 5, 6, 7 people. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was going to asphyxiate.
The most vicious attack, the beating and arrest of opposition candidate Billy Ford, was captured by cameras from around the world. Again, it is clear Panamanian riot police are standing by, doing nothing to interfere with the attackers. Today, Ford described the assault.
They turned around, breaking the line. The riot police did not do anything, and they just started shooting and beating and clobbering and everything.
Calderon says he believes the thugs are members of Panama's defense force.
And they are organized as military. They are military, dressed for the occasion as hoodlums.
Now, still to come on tonight's CBS Evening News, correspondent Bill Plant on another surprise from Gorbachev about arms reduction. And Gary Reeves on why some farmers are plowing under the winter wheat and their hopes on the high plains.
What do you take for diarrhea? Oh, the old standby. If you're like most people, lots and lots of the old standby. Well, now there's something more...
You've just been caught knocking off the Kellogg's Cracklin' Oat Bran. What's the most intelligent way to respond?
Did you eat all the Cracklin' Oat Bran?
Define the word eat.
Did you eat all the Cracklin' Oat Bran?
Yeah.
Did you eat all the Cracklin' Oat Bran?
Yo, Mom, you shoelace.
With the crunchy sweet taste of Kellogg's Cracklin' Oat Bran, an open box is an empty box.
Give up hot chocolate just because I started wearing dentures?
Heat-resistant Fix-A-Dent spreads evenly to keep on fixing loose spots, no matter how often it gets hot.
Scab!
Fix-A-Dent, and forget it.
We think the new 1989 John Deere walk-behind is terrific, but take it for a little test drive. Try it for a full month. If you're not completely happy, return it.
This is some offer.
It's some more.
Secretary of State Jim Baker left Moscow today with a minor agreement to resume talks next month on long-range nuclear missiles, but he was forced on the defensive and had to turn down a Gorbachev proposal to negotiate cutbacks in short-range missiles. CBS News State Department correspondent Bill Plant reports on the offer Baker refused.
Secretary of State James Baker, in his first official meeting with Mikhail Gorbachev, got a taste of the Soviet leader's trademark surprise tactics. Gorbachev laid out a new unilateral reduction of 500 battlefield nuclear warheads in Europe, and he urged Baker to negotiate further reductions in short-range weapons, something the U.S. has insisted it won't do. Baker called the Soviet offer a good but small step, but he told a news conference the U.S. hasn't changed its mind on the question of negotiation.
We agreed that we would continue to disagree agreeably for the time being with respect to this matter.
And putting the best possible face on things, the Secretary said the U.S. had urged the Soviets to make unilateral cuts all along.
So that's been an argument that we've made for quite some time.
U.S. officials estimate the Warsaw Pact nuclear arsenal at more than 10,000, and they say a cut of 500 warheads would be a drop in the bucket. Sources estimate NATO now has about 4,000 short-range warheads. And Baker points out that the alliance has cut its total unilaterally by 2,400 warheads over the past 10 years. Baker shrugs off the public relations implications of Gorbachev's latest announcement.
It is very good politics to talk about this, and we acknowledge and recognize that. But that security is extraordinarily important.
Following Baker's departure from Moscow, Soviet Foreign Minister Shevardnadze called the U.S. position on short-range nuclear arms negotiations very negative and a matter of grave concern. The NATO allies, whom Baker sees tomorrow, are already upset that the U.S. has failed to put forth any grand vision to offset Gorbachev, and that it refuses to negotiate reductions in the short-range nuclear missiles. Gorbachev's latest move is likely to increase pressure on the U.S. from the allies when the NATO summit meets here later this month. Bill Plant, CBS News, Brussels.
Key tests for the Midgetman nuclear missile in California today, and something went wrong. The Air Force was forced to destroy the weapon in flight. Officials still insist that the test was what they call a qualified success. CBS News correspondent Terrence Smith in Washington has our report.
The first full-scale test launch looked flawless as the Midgetman missile blasted off from a concrete pad at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California into a blue Pacific sky. Launch control indicated all was going well.
Missile is functioning on stage 3 now. All systems seem to be nominal.
The three-stage missile was to have delivered a dummy warhead to a test range on Kwajalein Island, about 4,600 miles away. But after 70 seconds, trouble.
At about 3/4 of the way through stage 2, we had an anomaly which we do not understand at this particular stage. The missile began to tumble, and properly the range destruct, range safety people sent a command destruct on the missile.
But the general insisted that the problem could be corrected.
So we got excellent telemetry, and I have no concerns that we'll be able to understand this anomaly, fix it, and go back to retesting.
The Midgetman is a key component in President Bush's plan to modernize the nation's land-based missile force. He's proposing the deployment of up to 500 of the single warhead mobile missiles in addition to the multiple warhead MX missiles. But before that can happen, the Air Force will have to determine what went wrong with today's launch. Terrence Smith, CBS News, Washington.
The controversial U.S.-Japanese deal to jointly develop and produce the new FSX fighter jet was narrowly approved today by the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. The vote was 9-8. It cut across party lines. It moves the red-hot debate to the full Senate floor. Critics of the arrangement charged Japan would get valuable U.S. technology that would help the Japanese compete with American aircraft makers.
Do you ever get the feeling something's lurking out there? Be prepared with new, faster-killing Black Flag anti-roach spray. It kills roaches on contact with its exterminator-proven ingredient, and it keeps killing more roaches for up to 2 weeks. Don't be afraid to turn on the light. Kill them, and kill them fast.
I grew my world record cucumber with Miracle-Gro plant food.
We asked world champion gardeners in the Guinness Book of World Records, which plant food do you use?
Miracle-Gro. 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 I swear by Miracle-Gro. It's the best.
Hey, if world champion gardeners depend on Miracle-Gro, shouldn't you? Now Miracle-Gro is so easy to use with the Miracle-Gro no-clog feeder. Just drop in and spray on. So fast, you'll feed your whole yard in minutes.
It's a weather delay.
There are headaches.
Now the computer's down.
And headaches. There's aspirin and Anacin. The Anacin aspirin formula relieves headaches better than regular aspirin.
Headache better?
Not just better, better.
Anacin, better relief.
Not this much. Not this much. Just this much. New advanced formula kaopectate works fast to relieve diarrhea and cramps. And it tastes better, too. New advanced formula kaopectate. More than ever, the diarrhea specialist.
One of the most powerful men on Capitol Hill stepped down today, though most Americans hadn't even heard of him before last week. CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Bob Schieffer reports on the man whose criminal past came back to haunt the man, the House, and Speaker Jim Wright.
A key legislative aide to the Speaker who rose through the ranks, John Mack, resigned just a week after the Washington Post revived the story of a violent incident 16 years ago in which Mack, then a discount store employee in the Washington suburbs, went berserk. He repeatedly attacked 20-year-old customer Pamela Small with a hammer and a steak knife and left her for dead. At the time, Mack's brother was married to Wright's daughter. Mack received a 15-year sentence but was paroled after only 27 months when Wright promised him a low-level staff job. Pamela Small eventually recovered and is now a Washington public relations executive. 2 years ago, her ordeal was first reported in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Last summer, Wright told CBS News correspondent Phil Jones that Mack had been a model employee.
I believe in giving people a second chance, Phil. That's my philosophy. And I'm glad I've done it. I've never had occasion to regret that I did.
The Post story caused a sensation after it appeared last week. A Virginia man said that his wife had been assaulted by Mack when the two were high school students, an allegation that Mack has denied to Wright's staff.
With all the other troubles, the turmoil could not have come at a worse time for the Speaker, who today expressed sadness for Mack and said his heart went out to the victim, Pamela Small.
House Democrats agreed Mack had to go.
I guess it's in the best interest of the House of Representatives that he removes himself from the point of controversy.
It's a very unfortunate circumstance. He did what he thought was the right thing to do, and I accept that decision.
Mack reportedly left Washington with his family today, but said in a statement, "To Pamela Small and to my family, all I can say now is what I have said to myself every day since this happened, that I am sorry, truly sorry." Bob Schieffer, CBS News, Washington.
New criminal charges against international arms dealer Richard Secord in the missiles to Iran disappearing cash case. A 9-count indictment unsealed today accuses the retired U.S. Air Force Major General of lying to Congress during the televised Iran-Contra hearings. The alleged lie, Secord's insistence that he made no profit off the secret sale of U.S. missiles to the Iranians. Secord was already charged with 6 other felonies, including conspiracy, theft, and wire fraud. Total possible jail time, if he is convicted, 69 years. Baseball Commissioner Bart Giamatti announced today that he's reviewed the special investigator's report on Pete Rose's alleged gambling activities. Giamatti set May 25th for Rose to respond to it if he wishes. Giamatti refused to disclose any part of the 225-page report, but said Rose has been given a copy.
When you grip a Delta faucet, you get more than just water. You get a chance to express yourself. Do it right now, and Delta will foot part of the bill. Up to $35 toward installation costs. Call toll-free by May 31st for rebate details and our free brochure, because now's the time to grab the phone. And a great deal when you get a grip on yourself with Delta.
When Ocean Spray adds sweet, plump strawberries to tangy cranberries, something cool and refreshing happens to salads. New Cran Fruit brand sauces add a cool, refreshing zing to everything.
Just this much Court-Aid heals more kinds of itches and rashes than all of these. Because Court-Aid has a clinically proven healing medicine they don't have. That's why Court-Aid is the Itch-Aid.
These days, I'm eating better. Less cholesterol, more fiber, plenty of fruits and vegetables. So how come I'm the one with a painful gas?
Surprise! The foods highest in nutrition are often highest in gas. That's why there's Gas-X. Unlike the leading antacid, Gas-X is the only ingredient approved for the relief of gas pain and pressure. See? Only Gas-X gets rid of the gas, so you feel better fast.
I'll eat to that.
Eat right and feel right with Gas-X.
The Environmental Protection Agency confirmed today what it promised earlier, that it will begin steps to ban the apple ripening chemical Alar. The EPA says the process will get underway in about 10 days and could take as long as 3 years to accomplish. Since it was disclosed that Alar may cause cancer, the nation's sale of apple products has slumped about 20%. The Agriculture Department today estimated this year's winter wheat crop will be the smallest in a decade and 8% less than last year. One major reason, the drought that grips parts of the Great Plains. Gary Reeves has our report.
A month before harvest, many farmers in the nation's top wheat-producing state are giving up on their crops and plowing them under. It's Quentin Swinson's worst year ever. 3/4 of his 3,000 acres are ruined.
I've been flooded out, I've been hailed out, but I've never been dried out. I hate to see it happen this way, but it's happened.
The nation's wheat farmers planted an extra 12% this year, hoping to cash in on high crop prices. Instead, they're reaping a $500 million loss. While it's already too late for much of the winter wheat crop, in the rest of the country, the spring planting has just begun, and many are gambling their farms against the forecast of another drought.
The tendency has been for summers following severe droughts, such as we had in '88, to be both warmer than normal and also drier than the long-term normal.
In southern Iowa, where rainfall is off by 40%, lakes and ponds are drying up. The National Guard has become the emergency water source for 5 tiny towns like Benton, where most of the wells have gone dry.
We take a bath in a teacup of water.
We need water to drink. We really need it.
But the Guard can't deliver enough water to help the farmers. Those who can afford it buy water from the towns lucky enough to have some. Cattle farmers must haul thousands of gallons a day or sell off their herds.
To get the ponds and the creeks filled back up, well, then we're going to need one of the good old southern Iowa gully washers. And that'll be, like a good hard 3-inch rain or something like that.
If we don't get some rain, we're going to have to sell more of it. We won't have grass for them. And then no other feed. You don't have enough feed to feed them all summer.
The bleak outlook has not slowed the pace of planting. Iowa's corn and soybeans are going in on schedule. Even in Kansas, some who lost their wheat are putting in a crop of milo, still hoping to eke some profit from the parched soil.
I don't know how many more years I'll farm, but I'm going to, as long as I can crawl in that tractor, I'm going to crawl there. I enjoy it that much.
That's our ambition, get the crop in and hope for the best.
And they hope that the forecast is wrong, that one day soon they'll see clouds full of rain instead of dust. Gary Reeves, CBS News, Lamoni, Iowa.
And that's the CBS Evening News. Connie Chung will be sitting in here tomorrow while I try to make my way to China, where all next week the CBS Evening News will provide extensive coverage, we hope something in context and with perspective, on the new face of communism. Now, later tonight, 48 Hours examines the controversy of juveniles on death row. Death row kids. That's at 8, 7 Central Time. Dan Rather, see you again soon.
April in Paris.
He said he'd give me Paris wrapped up in ribbons. But he was young and poor. So we settled for a small cafe and coffee. Coffee so rich, I thought I'd never taste its like again.
Discover the pleasure of rich French roast, new from Maxwell House. Rich French roast coffee. We can't give you France, but we'll give you the flavor.
This may sound strange, but if I hadn't had a heart attack, I wouldn't be here today. I am doing fine, and I learned something you ought to know. There's a whole lot of proof that a diet low in saturated fats and cholesterol can help keep your heart healthy. Fleischmann's has 0 cholesterol, 0, zip, none. I changed after my heart attack. What are you waiting for?
Fleischmann's. It does your heart good.
Let's try it on.
We interrupt this shopping trip.
Charge it.
For a reminder, the Discover card actually pays you cash back for every charge.
Don't forget.
It pays to Discover.
Next time you get heartburn, consider yourself lucky, because now Rolaids comes in assorted fruit flavors, still calcium-rich, sodium-free, and as effective as ever. Assorted flavored Rolaids. Relief never tasted so good.
Kids, teenagers convicted of murder, old enough to kill. Are they too young to die? 48 Hours tonight.
This is CBS.